It is late evening in 2001 inside a secure office at the Pentagon. Bright lights hum over rows of cubicles. A systems administrator leans forward, watching a progress bar crawl across his terminal. Suddenly, the cursor freezes. The bar stalls mid-update. He taps the keyboard. Nothing happens. Then a black window opens. On the screen appear words typed one letter at a time. Your security is crap. The message feels personal and direct. He snaps out of his seat, heart pounding. He disconnects and logs back in. But other sessions lock up too. Within seconds, phones start ringing. Network maps flicker as multiple servers vanish from view. Someone has breached the Pentagon and left a taunt behind. Thousands of miles away, in a small flat in North London, Gary McKinnon sits hunched in front of a bulky CRT monitor. The glow paints his tired face in pale blue. His desk is cluttered with ashtrays, empty mugs, and stacks of printed UFO articles. A 56K modem squeals and hisses through the night, carrying him into networks far beyond his bedroom. Gary is 36, unemployed, and convinced that governments around the world are hiding the truth about extraterrestrial life. He spends nights buried in UFO forums and conspiracy archives. By day, he drifts through unemployment offices. By night, he is determined to uncover evidence of secret spacecraft, hidden technologies, and what he calls the truth embargo. Gary's life revolves around his search for UFO secrets. He is convinced the US government hides proof of UFOs, and hacking into their networks has become his nightly ritual. Every detail of his life bends around that search. He eats quickly just to get back to the keyboard. He puts tape over his webcam light, worried about being watched. He even sets alarms because his dial-up provider automatically disconnects every hour, forcing him to redial if he wants to stay inside the Pentagon's systems. Friends and family fade away. What remains is the screen, glowing in the dark, pulling him deeper every night. Tonight, while Pentagon staff scramble, Gary is calmly navigating their systems from a quiet London bedroom. Gary spends night after night probing US networks, cycling through lists of IP addresses he has gathered from public documents and forum posts. Most of the time, nothing happens. The connection fails or the machine refuses it. He notes the dead ends in a battered notebook beside his keyboard and dials again. Hours pass like this. Failed attempt after failed attempt. Then, close to midnight, a login window finally appears. He types administrator, leaves the password blank, and presses enter. For a moment, the cursor spins. He expects another rejection, but instead the screen changes. It loads him straight into a government desktop, complete with drives, folders, and even network maps appear in front of him. Gary leans in, wide-eyed. From his small bedroom, Gary has just stepped into the heart of the Pentagon's systems. At first, Gary only explores. The desktop in front of him feels unreal, like a simulation game that should not exist. He clicks through folders with names he does not recognize, scanning for anything tied to UFOs. He finds dull spreadsheets, maintenance logs, and software tools meant for system admins. Nothing close to flying saucers. But the more machines he connects to, the more confident he grows. One successful login leads to another. A tree of remote desktops opens on his screen, each one a gateway into a different military office. He starts leaving behind small programs that allow him to slip back in later. Sometimes he cannot resist taunting the people on the other end. On one server, he opens a notepad file and types a single line, "Your security is crap." On another, he renames a system folder just to prove someone else has been there. For Gary, it is a strange mix of activism and obsession. He convinces himself that if he pokes around long enough, the hidden truth about UFOs will appear in front of him. Then one night, on a NASA server, something catches his eye. A folder labeled non-terrestrial officers. Inside sits a spreadsheet of names. Captain L. Collier, Major R. Sanderson. Gary scrolls down the list. None of them appear in the military directories he has studied online. Right beside it is another file, fleet-to-fleet transfers.xls. He opens it. Rows of dates and codes fill the screen. One column repeats a phrase he has never seen before, ship to ship. To Gary, staring at the green glow of his monitor, it looks like a log of vessels moving back and forth between unknown craft. He grips his pen and scribbles the file name into his notebook, underlining it twice. For a long moment, he does not move. His cigarette burns down in the ashtray as he stares at the spreadsheet, convinced he has stumbled onto evidence that the government is running operations beyond Earth. Only later, while digging deeper, does he stumble upon another clue, a satellite image buried in a NASA directory. The picture begins to load, line by line, on his sluggish 56K connection. A craft-like outline starts to take shape against the blackness of space. At 42% complete, the modem cuts out. The connection drops. Gary sits frozen, staring at a half-finished image he will never see again. For weeks, the intrusions look like nothing more than network hiccups. A few machines lock unexpectedly. Remote sessions cut out mid-task. Administrators file tickets and move on. Then the pattern grows. Logs from different bases start to tell the same story. Connections from outside the United States, always in the middle of the night. At first, they assume it is a faulty router or misconfigured software, but the problems keep spreading. By the time investigators pull the data together, they can see the scale. Someone has touched not just a handful of computers, but entire clusters across the Army, Navy, Air Force, and even NASA. Accounts have been hijacked, programs installed, and the activity is consistent, almost methodical. The realization sinks in. Someone overseas has been moving inside America's most sensitive networks for months, and no one noticed until now. By summer, court hearings, press conferences, and the list of affected systems stretches across nearly every branch of the military. Administrators estimate that hundreds of machines have been tampered with. Investigators later claim the damage alone costs more than $700,000 to repair. Inside the Pentagon, the mood shifts from technical problem to national threat. Entire teams are reassigned to trace the intruder. Analysts pore over access logs, watching the same foreign IP addresses reappear night after night. To their frustration, the connections always vanish before they can react. For Gary, the success only fuels his obsession. He no longer limits himself to single desktops. He maps out networks, drawing diagrams in his notebooks, marking which servers he can reach and which still lock him out. Each victory convinces him he is closing in on hidden data. Each discovery leaves him hungrier. If these files exist, he thinks, then the real secrets must still be hidden further inside. On the US side, the pressure mounts. Briefings reach higher and higher up the chain of command. Senior officials demand to know who has been able to roam freely across NASA and Pentagon systems for months without being stopped. Night after night, Gary follows the same routine. He waits until the house is quiet, then dials into the network, searching for another open door. What he does not realize is that the routine itself is leaving a trail. At first, the investigators cannot tell where the intruder is coming from. The logs are messy, full of broken connections. But slowly, a pattern appears. The same line keeps lighting up in the records, always in the middle of the night, always from North London. Gary sometimes tries to hide behind what he calls a proxy, the early version of a VPN. But often he skips it, trusting that the Pentagon would never trace a lone dial-up user. Each time he forgets, the logs record his real address. To him, it is just another connection tone in the dark. To the analysts on the other side, it is the giveaway they have been waiting for. The hacker who seemed untouchable now has an address that points to a single house in Britain. In March 2002, the knock finally comes. Scotland Yard officers step into Gary's flat and seize his computer. His notebooks, filled with IP addresses and UFO sketches, are bagged as evidence. For the first time, the intruder who taunted Pentagon administrators is face to face with the law. The story explodes across headlines. In Britain, newspapers call him a conspiracy chaser who went too far. In the United States, officials describe him as the man who endangered national security in the middle of a new war on terror. The US government prepares charges carrying decades in prison. Prosecutors push for extradition. Gary insists he was never a terrorist, only a man searching for hidden truths. But his fate is no longer in his hands. The battle now moves from his bedroom computer to international courtrooms. For Gary, the knock on his door is only the beginning. What follows is 10 years of uncertainty. Court hearings, press conferences, and endless appeals. Each time the U.S. pushes harder for extradition, promising charges that could add up to 70 years in prison. Each time his lawyers fight back, arguing that he is not a terrorist but a vulnerable man chasing UFO theories. The stress takes its toll. Diagnosed with Asperger's and depression, Gary struggles under the weight of a possible life sentence thousands of miles away from home. Newspapers speculate on how long he would survive in an American supermax. His mother campaigns relentlessly, telling anyone who will listen that extradition would be a death sentence for her son. Then, in October 2012, the final decision arrives. Britain's Home Secretary, Theresa May, rules that Gary will not be sent to the United States. She declares the risk to his health is too severe. American officials are furious. They expected a hacker who penetrated Pentagon and NASA systems to spend decades behind bars. But it never happens. After a decade of waiting, Gary walks free. He never spends a single day in prison. The man accused of carrying out the biggest military hack in history ends up at home in North London, living quietly with his mother, playing guitar, and fading from the headlines. In the end, Gary's greatest discovery was never a document or a name. It was a picture that refused to finish loading. Line by line, it revealed a shape in the dark, then froze at 42%. He sat staring at the screen, convinced he was on the edge of something extraordinary. That frozen image is all that remains. Proof or fantasy? No one will ever know.